Hello, heroes. I am here at PAX Unplugged with Joshua AC Newman at the Indie Bizzare, and we're going to talk about some games. Joshua, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I do like to talk about games.
Well, I am excited to talk to you because you have Mobile Frame Zero, which is a game that I picked up at Metatopia a couple of years ago, and I love the concept. Could you bring our audience in on it?
Yeah, sure. So the deal is you build giant robots, 3 to 8 of them, depending on the size of the game that you're playing. And you're sort of second-guessing each other so that you can have an asymmetric advantage or disadvantage over each other. And you throw them down on the table, you set up a tactical situation, and about 2 hours later, you have a heap of disassembled Lego that you have to put back together again. And ideally, somebody's won.
And you've touched on something that I definitely want to highlight for our audience. It actually uses Legos. A big part of this game is, independent creativity using Lego bricks. So it's like those tactical miniature games that you're familiar with, but it uses pieces that you probably already have in your home. So unlike a mini game where you're sinking like thousands of dollars into a new set and thousands of hours into painstakingly like painting things, with Mobile Frame Zero, you're actually just using Lego bricks, which a lot of people already have in the home. I think it is a genius invention.
Thank you. Thanks. And actually what I found is people usually start with the stuff under their bed and out of their mom's closet. And then that's the end of them. After a while, they start buying just the parts they need on the underground Lego marketplaces on the internet and stuff.
Perfect. Yes. So I like it's definitely something I recommend. For what ages would you say Mobile Frame Zero is a good fit for? Like, let's say you have an adult running the game. How young do you get?
The youngest kid I've seen able to actually get his head around it crossed the developmental stage at the table, who was about 9 years old, because you need to be able to plan a couple runs in advance. But people play with their kids all the time. You can't roll over your kid with your tactical ability when they're 6. It's not going to be fun for anybody.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I think it's a great transitional thing to, take advantage of a toy that you already have in the home and use it in a new way, introduce people to like a new area of gaming. But one thing that's like only one of the things that you brought for us. So what else do you want to talk us through today?
All right. So the game I'm most proud of right now is The Bloody-Handed Name of Bronze. It's a role-playing game. It's fast and punchy. It's Bronze Age sword and sorcery. So it's a little bit like Conan and a little bit like Achilles or Samson. And it's also a little like Dying Earth. It's got this sort of a little bit of a sardonic sense of humor. And I designed it to literally play over coffee and feel like a Conan short story. So I'll sit down and play in 45 minutes sometimes, or an hour. And I have a campaign going too that's gone on for 3 games so far. I think my character just kind of retired by heading down the river, and leaving a city in the hands of a reluctant hero and my daughter, the God Queen, I want nothing to do with. So mostly it comes out kind of that way. A lot of irony and tragedy, a lot of blood and sex. Not good for 9-year-olds.
Yes, probably not a game for 9-year-olds. But I do love the concept of any role-playing game that plays in under an hour. I've seen a few concepts where it works. What's like the main engine driving this one?
Well, it's a close cousin to Apocalypse World, but in ways that Apocalypse World fans might not fully recognize. You have dice pools that you roll them all every time you're doing something, but some of them are the interests of the supernatural forces who you've allied yourselves with, and sometimes they want stuff from you. So they tell you both if you're pulling stuff off and in the realms in which you can have an effect, how much of an effect you're having, but it's also telling you if it's time for your debt to the sun to come due.
Very, very cool. And I'd like to finish out heading back into the sci-fi territory with Shock. Tell us about Shock.
Yeah, sure. Shock Social Science Fiction is a role-playing game that I'm actually working on the 2nd edition right now on my Patreon at patreon.com/Joshua, which is going to still be a while. But it's sort of one of the... I've been told, this is not a brag, but I've been told that it's one of the seminal works for the story games scene, despite having some real differences from stuff that came later. It's a game where you sit down to play sort of a Philip K. Dick, Ursula Le Guin kind of science fiction story, sort of like Logan's Run, Blade Runner kind of thing. The world that you build from the get-go is saturated with irony and compromise. And so by the end, what you plan to have happen has had to come to some sort of dynamic compromise to what you plan to have happen, which had to come some sort of dynamic compromise to what they wanted to have happen. So very often, like at the end of Planet of the Apes or Blade Runner, like the whole world can't ever be the same. Every so often somebody manages to sort of put the world together, but it's not a game about heroes. It's about people who are stuck in the shockwave of the future and either get crushed by it or learn to surf.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for showing these off to us. And if folks want to find these games and find you online, where would they be able to do that?
We're here during the show. We're here at the Indie Bizzare, which you can find at column A7. Seems to be our only address system. I'm also at glyphpress.com, and you should be able to find us at least by the time we in our punk attitude get our shit together and can put our website together. You should be able to get to me through indiegamebizzare.com too.
Well, Rad, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. It was a pleasure talking to you, Josh.